Hello, everyone. I am here with Zoe Lister-Jones talking with you, Sarah, that hashtag show. I always forget to introduce myself sometimes because I get really excited to talk to someone when I really love a project. So I thought Slip was so interesting as someone herself who is going on her own self-discovery journey. And I feel like that's something that never stops. I found that it was wildly relatable and so different than things that I have seen before. And I know it just premiered at South by Southwest. What was the reception like out there?
First of all, thank you. That means a lot. It was amazing. It's always sort of terrifying, especially when it's a piece this personal and one that I am wearing so many hats within. But it's crazy to birth it into the world, and South by was an amazing place to do that. It's a place that really launched my career, so it was so exciting to return to it with this project that means so much to me, and the audience, yeah, was just so receptive, and it's an exciting time because it's just been living in my own little bubble. So now sharing it with the world is pretty cool.
That's awesome. And it's got to be a little nerve-wracking, even though I know this isn't the first time you have been a writer, director, an actor starring in something. Why do you want to wear that many hats when it comes to especially a project like this, where when you called it birthing, you are so vulnerable. You're physically naked as well as emotionally naked. So I just want to talk to you about that. Like, why?
um, I love the way that writing, directing, and acting all function together. I think it's really exciting as an artist for me. Obviously, it's overwhelming and challenging, and like you said, in this project, I'm taking on a lot as an actor, in addition to as a writer and director. But there's something, I think it makes the process actually in some ways easier for me because when I'm writing, I'm sort of directing in my mind, and when I'm directing and acting at the same time, it's this really exciting sort of toolkit that I have access to that otherwise I wouldn't as a director. I can mold other people's performances with my own performance. I can be, sort of within the belly of the beast, shaping performance in a way that I otherwise wouldn't. And I think in terms of like the sex scenes that I'm acting in, I would feel so much less comfortable and safe if I wasn't also the writer and director. And so I think while it is all really vulnerable and exposing on all fronts, there is a certain amount of safety too, because I have so much agency, within the process.
It's amazing. And I know when you did Band-Aid, I believe the entire crew was female. Was that the case with Slip as well?
It wasn't. I'm very cognizant of hiring as many women as I can in positions of power. Band-Aid was so fiercely independent. It was really the only time that I was able to do that. I would like to do it again, but once working at these larger scales, it proves more difficult, not because there aren't plenty of women for the roles, but just because there's just a different sort of level of bureaucracy.
Absolutely.
But Band-Aid was truly like, yeah, one of the most fulfilling artistic experiences because of my crew, for sure.
Yeah, I wasn't sure because of how intimate you had a lot of intimacy scenes in this series, not this film. When it comes to directing yourself in moments like this, and how she's very messy, she's very vulnerable. Like, how do you compartmentalize a little bit to make sure you're getting the best performance without fully judging yourself as a person?
Mm. I mean, I wanted May to be messy. I wanted her to be really deeply flawed as a character. Those are my favorite characters to watch as a viewer. They're exciting characters to play as an actor, and they're the most relatable, I find. And in the journey that May is on, it's about, as you said, self-discovery, and part of, I think, that process is facing your ugliest parts, you know,
Yeah.
and her best friend Gina, who's played by Tamika Tafari, is a brilliant actor. Really serves as a mirror and holds me accountable for a lot of the mess that that she's created. Um, but I think in playing those parts and in writing those parts, it's so important to come from a place of empathy for your characters. So I try to never judge my characters, both as a performer and as a creator.
Awesome. And you brought Gina up. She is my favorite. I'm like, everyone needs a Gina in their life. I loved her. What with everyone else going through May's life, they always kind of popped up, but differently. But Gina stayed her constant, was always her friend. What made you make that choice? Because you easily could have just had her be the random barista or someone at a grocery store, you know?
I think, like, allegorically, I was interested in the ways that I think female friendship in particular um, serve as an anchor, you know, for so many women, and that regardless of the madness of our romantic misadventures, that those friendships are um, really what keep us in touch with ourselves and our purpose. And of course, like, you know, I also wanted the fun of Gina constantly returning in various versions of herself, but always as May's best friend. I thought was a funny dichotomy to play with it, just in terms of the narrative.
I know you're playing a little bit with everyone's calling it the multiverse. You know, we'll stick with that term, sure. What, and I'm sure you've been asked this a ton, but I have to ask it myself. What made you want to make the female orgasm be the trigger for her jumping timelines and worlds? You know, because I do love that it's a very much a freedom of expression of women and sexuality. And I was like, oh, what an interesting choice.
Yeah. Well, I guess so many women find their sexual awakening later in life, and it wasn't something that I had seen on screen very much. And so I thought that the orgasm as portal was was kind of an
Transformative.
amazing, like, framework to explore um, female sexuality, and I wanted to explore it in a way that made it central to the narrative, so that it wasn't an addendum. It wasn't just like a fun sexual romp that was you know, adjacent to the story. It was the story. There was no way to move forward in the story without May coming. And I think female orgasms have been historically very threatening on screen. We weren't able to see them very often. And I think that that's had a huge impact on the shame around our own sexuality and sexual agency. And I guess I wanted to shift that in whatever way I could.
I love that. My final two things, I'm getting the 2-minute warning. Um, if you were to slip into someone else's life, you were to wake up next to someone else, who would it be for you?
Oh man. Um, if I could be in anyone else's life, this is going to be a corny answer, okay?
Okay.
But I feel so happy in my own life right now. And I think it took me slipping into some other lives, you know, metaphorically speaking, for me to get here. And it doesn't mean that I'll remain here, but I think I went through some major life shifts and transformations personally, and you know, sort of came out of the difficulty of that situation with a lot of gratitude for where I am. So I'm going to choose to be me.
I'll take it. And then finally, why should everyone watch Slip? What is it you're hoping people get from it and why they should check it out?
Well, I hope that they just have a lot of fun. It's a really wild and irreverent and crazy sexual adventure that I wanted to create, like, an escapist experience for people, that also could make them or could allow for them to feel less alone in their own struggles in life, because I think the questions that Slip brings up are very universal. So yeah, I hope that people who want to laugh and maybe cry and also feel turned on tune in.
Amazing. Perfect. Thank you so much. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope everyone checks out Slip, coming soon to Roku.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.